In the third video in the series, we're going to use VBA to start moving data around the file. Let's get straight into the VBA editor. Now, as always, this is a complicated thing we're trying to do. So what's the best approach? The best approach is to try to do something simpler. We know we're going to use information from the table in a line of code to transfer data. That's quite a difficult thing to do, to get VBA to look at the cells and get the information into the line of code. Let's do something simple first. So how would we do this in a kind of manual way? What are we trying to do? We're trying to take some information from cell C6 on the details sheet and put it into cell C6 on the method sheet, which is just here. How would we do that in kind of a manual way if we were coding? Well, it's fairly straightforward. So we'd say sheets method dot range C6 equals, and then it's going to be sheets details dot range C6. So hopefully you're familiar with this kind of code. This line of code we were using in the Excel VBA for Post Beginner series, where we showed a less efficient approach for doing this, a simpler but less efficient approach. So what's going to happen now? We've got an error here. Yep, because I've got a bracket there. Hopefully you spotted that yourself at home. So what are we trying to do now? Well, let's just go through the code again. And do we have data in the file? We currently have data in the file. I'm going to go to the other module, and I've got a routine in the other module to clear the file. So I'm just going to hit the F5 key. So we can see the cells are clear now. And let's go back to the code we've written in module 2. Let's just try to run this line of code. Let's see what happens. Okay, running the key line of code now, F8 key, and we can see that what's happened. Range C6 equals sheets detail, range C6, and we can see we've got our information in there. So that seems to be working absolutely fine, but that's not particularly exciting. That's the approach we were using previously. So we've got to think about, how is this table going to help us? And you might want to think yourself, stop the video. How is this table going to help us? We need to get information out of the table into the line of code. If we can do that, then that opens up a whole world of possibilities. We can just update the table in the file. We don't have to interact with the VBA editor at all. Super powerful. So that's our reward. That's what we're working towards, but we're going to have to do some work to get there. It's not going to be absolutely straightforward. Okay, so we know we're looping through the cells in column B. That's what we demoed in the last video. So rather than using this hard-coded sheet reference here, we could just say to Excel, use the value in the table, use the value in B6. We could actually say dot range B6. In fact, let's just see if this works. Okay, so what's going to happen now? Excel is going to look at range B6 on the Engine 2 sheet, take the value out of there, which is project name. So we should actually be in cell C6 here. It's going to take the value from C6, which is method, and then find that in the file, and then do the transfer of data. So let's see what happens now. F8 key. Okay, and I can see that the data has gone in there. So that approach seems to work too. If we say to Excel, let's go back to the engine sheet quickly, Engine 2 sheet rather. Yeah, if we say to Excel, just take the value, in this case, in cell C6, just take the value from the cell. Now that's intriguing for us. We can take the value from the cell. We also know how to loop through the cell. So maybe we can put this all together to do something super powerful. Hopefully you're seeing some of the connections in your mind. Don't worry if you're not, we're going to work through everything. So rather than this hard-coded value, I'm going to use the variable name. The variable is looping through all of the cells. And let's say Chris cell, but we know that the information is not in column B. The information is in column C. We want the sheet name, remember. So we're going to say Chris cell dot offset, then we want to go one column across. So 0, 1, dot value. Okay, now the code's getting more complicated, so we're going to really try to be steady and systematic. I've just put the rest of the code on a different line so you can see it in your screenshot. What are we expecting to happen now? We're expecting the same thing to happen, but let me just talk you through this step by step. I'm sorry this is taking a long time, but it's really important to understand. So we've got this cell variable. That's holding a value, a cell. And we've defined the cells here. So it's starting in B6 and it's going to the bottom of the column that starts at B6. So it's going to start in this cell here. And then we're saying offsets 1 column across. So it's going to get to this cell here, cell C6, which contains method. It's going to get to that cell and take the value. So it's just going to take method, which means it's going to get to the method sheet. That's the theory anyway. Let's go to the method sheet. There's no data in there now. And let's run the code again. Control S, save the file. F8 key, running through the code. Do we have some data on the method sheet? Yes, we've got some data there. So this is, as I said, intriguing. It's getting exciting for us. Okay, so we've managed to take the sheet name, going back to the engine 2 sheet, managed to take the sheet name. Now we also want to take the cell name, and then we can do the same with the origin data. So again, if you've got the idea, why not stop the video, try to complete this yourself. That's going to maximize the learning. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste some code here. And just drop it in here. I don't need speech marks. We're not using hard-coded references here. Okay, I'm going to create a little bit more space here in your screenshot. Right, so the second column we're interested in, so we've got the sheet name. Yeah, we've managed to do that. Now we want the cell reference. So the cell reference is 2 columns away from column B. Our variable is looping through column B. So we want to say to Excel, go 2 columns across this time. That's going to give you a cell reference, and that's going to allow you to put the information in the right place. So if we run the code now, I'm going to clear the method sheet here. If we run the code now, well, let's just Control S and let's see what happens. F5 key, run the code. We can see we've got some data in here. So hooray! The mechanism seems to be working. Let's celebrate. The mechanism is working, but we're not there yet because project title, yes, the project title is Tiger Garden Office, but the site name, well, the site name is Tiger Back Garden. At the moment, you can see from here, each time we run this line of code, we're taking the value in C6 on the detail sheet, and the value in C6 on the detail sheet is Tiger Garden Office. That's why we've got this value duplicated on the method statement sheet. So how are we going to fix this? Can you debug this? Again, try to stop the video and do it yourself. I'm going to copy paste this line of code into the second part of the code, if you like, and then just make some simple adjustments. Now I know, looking at the engine 2 sheet, the structure of the table, destination sheet, destination cell, origin sheet, origin cell. We can see we've got the details in there. So first column, second column. So this must be the third column. It's 3 columns away. And then the destination cell is going to be 4 columns away. So you can see I was able to recycle some code that we knew worked. You could see that I recycled this whole line of code, recycled it, made some tweaks. That's often a good way to work through a complicated piece of code by reusing code that you know works. Luna is stirring, so this must be particularly exciting piece of code. Okay, let's go back to the method sheet. What are we expecting to happen now? Let's clear out these cells. Well, the project title is Tiger Garden Office. The site name, looking at the details sheet, is Tiger Back Garden. So we'd expect those details to come through when we run the code. Control S, save the file. You can click the play button at the top to run the code. I like to use keyboard shortcuts, F5 key on the Windows PC. We can see we've got our information in there. Seems to be working well. Hopefully you're beginning to feel the power. But But I've got another challenge for you before we finish this video. Can you put the project manager details in there as well? Stop the video, try to do it yourself. Well, we want to put that into cell C8. So I'm going to say, go back to the Engine 2 sheet, of course. And this is project manager. And then yes, the destination sheet is the method sheet, and it's going to go into cell C8. The origin sheet, so the sheet that this data is coming from, as usual, is the details sheet. Project manager is on cell C7. So we can say project manager C7. So I've introduced another action here. It's going to do something else, but I didn't do anything in the VBA editor. How cool is that? Not touching the code in the VBA editor, just updating the backend table. We're expecting now our method sheet to fully populate here. Okay, so I'm going to run the code, Control S, save the file, run the code, F5 key. What have we got? We've got our details in there. I'm in as the project manager. Feel sorry for the people who've commissioned this project. I'm in there as the project manager, but we can see our mechanism is working. So a challenge for you before. Oh, you're having a little stretch. Are you having a little stretch on my arm? Easy. I'm going to cheat a little bit to get it done. I'm going to take the information from the engine sheet. This sheet was in the original download file. I'm just going to copy paste the data. You can see we've got the same column structure, column layout. So this should work fine. And I'm going to copy this in here, Control Alt V, and paste special V for values. And I've got all of those values in there. But just then you can see the power of this technique. We can just update the table in the spreadsheet. We don't need to go to the VBA editor to introduce new elements to this. We can do it all in the spreadsheet. Right, let's run the code one more time. What are we expecting to happen? Well, for example, the risk assessment 2 sheet should be populated with some information, as should the risk assessment 1 sheet, because we've expanded the table to that effect. Control S, save the file, F5 key, run the code. Going to the risk assessment 2 sheet, we've got the information in there. Risk assessment 1 sheet, information in there. Method statement sheet, our information is in there, and the detail sheet. So this super powerful mechanism, that's what it is. We've got the code there working with the backend table to get this job done super quickly. As I said, this is the actual technique I use on my projects. Why did I come up with this technique? Well, I got tired of writing lots of lines in VBA code. I was thinking it would be much easier if I could just update a table in the spreadsheet. It's easier for me. It's also a more flexible solution. What if your customer wants to change the layout of a sheet? What if your customer wants to introduce a new sheet? Using this approach, you don't need to go to the VBA editor. You can just make additions to this table. Super powerful technique. I've got one more challenge for you though. So let's suppose, we've managed to populate the file. What if we wanted to clear the data in the file? We're not going to go through that in this video series. How would you do that? Again, we want a dynamic solution. So can you use a similar mechanism to get the job done? On the engine sheet, if you scroll down towards the bottom, you can see I've got a table there to clear the file. So maybe you want to use this table as a starting point in order to do this file clearance function, because we don't want to be going through the file having to delete information manually. So that's it. We've got our super powerful mechanism for transferring data around the file, and we've got a mechanism for clearing the file. I hope you get value out of this technique. It saved me so much time over the years. I'll see you in another video on the channel.